Forget the sensitive empath stereotype. The INFJ brain is a strategic anomaly. They are the 1% who operate with a built-in predictive algorithm that most people can't even comprehend. You know that person who somehow predicted that your life would end before you even saw the warning signs? The one who looked at your new job offer and got this weird feeling you should pass, even though it looked perfect on paper. The friend who can walk into a room and immediately sense the tension everyone else is pretending doesn't exist. That's not intuition. That's a scientific anomaly in action. Today, we break down the 8 scientific truths that explain how they predict the future, why they disappear, and what makes them the most misunderstood strategic minds on the planet. If you're an INFJ, this is your validation. If you know one, this is your guide. Before we start, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe, so you won't miss any of our weekly deep dives into the world of personality types. If you are looking to deepen your understanding of yourself and your personality type, click the link in the comments to take our favorite free personality test. Strategic truth number 1. The selective social strategist. Here's the first thing people get wrong about INFJs. They think they're shy or antisocial because they don't talk to strangers at parties. But that's not what's happening at all. INFJs aren't shy. They're strategically selective with their social energy. There's a huge difference. When an INFJ walks into a room, they're instantly reading the energy. They pick up on tensions, unspoken dynamics, and emotional undercurrents that fly right over everyone else's heads. This isn't some mystical power. It's pattern recognition on steroids. They notice micro-expressions, body language, and vocal tones that most people completely miss. All of this information gets processed at lightning speed to create a complete social map of the situation. Because they're absorbing all this data, they're extremely intentional about where they invest their energy. Small talk about the weather or what someone had for lunch feels like torture because it's just noise blocking out the deeper patterns they're trying to read. But get them talking about something meaningful, and suddenly they transform. Philosophy, human behavior, the mysteries of existence. Now they're fully engaged, because these conversations actually feed their strategic mind instead of draining it. So when an INFJ seems distant at first, don't take it personally. They're not rejecting you. They're figuring out if this interaction is worth the energy investment. Once they decide you are, you've got their full attention and loyalty. Strategic truth number 2, the prediction master. This one honestly freaks people out until they get used to it. INFJs have this uncanny ability to predict outcomes that seem impossible to foresee. They'll tell you a relationship won't work out months before the couple realizes it themselves. They'll sense a business deal is sketchy before any red flags appear. It's not magic, though it sure feels like it sometimes. Their dominant cognitive function, introverted intuition, is constantly running pattern analysis in the background. They're connecting dots from past experiences, current observations, and subtle environmental cues to form these eerily accurate predictions. The frustrating part for INFJs is they often can't explain how they know what they know. It's just this deep inner certainty that comes from somewhere beyond logical reasoning. When they try to articulate it, they sound vague or like they're making stuff up. But here's the thing. Their track record speaks for itself. Ask anyone who's close to an INFJ, and they'll tell you stories about warnings that seemed paranoid at the time, but proved absolutely correct later. They'll predict which coworker is about to quit, which friend is struggling, even when they're putting on a happy face, and which opportunities are actually traps in disguise. It's like they have access to a database of human behavior patterns that most people can't see. The key is learning to trust their insights, even when they can't provide concrete evidence. Their pattern recognition system has been calibrated through years of observing human nature, and it rarely steers them wrong. Strategic truth number 3. The hidden weight bearer. Here's something that hits people like a truck when they finally realize it. That calm, composed INFJ, who always seems to have it together, is actually carrying an enormous emotional load that nobody sees. On the surface, they're the steady ones, the friends who listen to your problems, offer wise advice, and somehow make everything feel manageable. They're emotional shock absorbers for everyone around them, creating stability in the chaos. But underneath that peaceful exterior, there's a storm brewing. INFJs feel everything intensely, their own emotions plus everyone else's, because their empathy works like an emotional sponge that absorbs feelings from their environment. The strategic part is how they manage this overload. They've learned to bottle up their own emotions to process them privately because they don't want to burden others with their intensity. They're so used to being the strong, reliable one that showing vulnerability feels like failing at their core function. You might know an INFJ for years before you see them truly break down. And when they do, it's overwhelming, because all those stored emotions come flooding out like a dam that finally burst. This is why they need people who will check in on them regularly. Not just the surface level, "How are you doing?" but the deeper, "Are you really okay?" They spend so much energy taking care of everyone else, they forget they need care too. The weight they carry isn't just emotional either. They feel responsible for other people's growth and happiness, which creates this constant pressure to be available and helpful, even when they're running on empty. Strategic truth number 4, the vanishing act. This one confuses people more than almost anything else about INFJs. One day, they're fully present in your life, texting back immediately, making plans, and being their usual engaged self. Then suddenly, poof, they disappear. No calls, no texts, no social media activity. It's like they vanished into thin air, and you're left wondering what you did wrong. Spoiler alert, it's probably not about you at all. INFJs need alone time the way other people need food and water. Because they're constantly absorbing energy and emotions from their environment, they get completely drained on a level that goes beyond normal tiredness. When this happens, they retreat into what some call hermit mode. They'll cancel plans, ignore messages, and basically hibernate in their own space to restore their energy. It's not personal rejection, it's survival. During these periods, they're usually doing things that help them process everything they've absorbed. Journaling, reading, listening to music, creating art, or just sitting in complete silence. They need to reconnect with their own thoughts and feelings because they've been so tuned in to everyone else. The best thing you can do when an INFJ disappears is give them space. Don't bombard them with, "Are you okay?" messages every few hours. Send one text letting them know you're there if they need you, then back off. They'll resurface when they're ready, and they'll actually appreciate that you respected their need for solitude, instead of making it about your own anxiety. This pattern of disappearing and reappearing is just part of how they maintain their emotional and mental health. Strategic truth number 5, the potential spotter. Here's where INFJs get themselves into trouble, and it's both beautiful and heartbreaking to watch. They have this incredible gift for seeing potential in people, even when those people don't see it in themselves. An INFJ looks at someone and sees not just who they are now, but who they could become. They spot the buried dreams, the untapped talents, the goodness that's been overshadowed by pain or trauma. And because they see this potential, they believe in people with an intensity that can be life-changing. This sounds amazing, and it is. Having an INFJ believe in you can transform your entire self-concept. They'll encourage you, support you, and push you toward your best self, even when you've given up on yourself. But here's the dark side of this gift. Because they see good in everyone, INFJs often stay in relationships and situations way longer than they should. They'll give chance after chance to people who don't deserve it, hoping that person will finally live up to their potential. They become vulnerable to manipulation because toxic people spot this compassionate nature from miles away. Narcissists and users know exactly how to exploit an INFJ's belief in human potential to get what they want. The INFJ will tolerate behavior that others would walk away from immediately because they're convinced that underneath it all, there's someone worth fighting for. They'll pour energy into empty wells, hoping to fill them up through sheer force of belief.
Eventually, though, INFJs wake up. It might take months or even years. But once they realize someone isn't going to change, once they accept they've been wasting their investment, they're done. And when an INFJ is done, they're completely done. Strategic truth number 6, the walking paradox. If you spend enough time with an INFJ, you'll notice something that might drive you crazy at first. They're walking contradictions, and I mean that in the most fascinating way possible. They're incredibly private about their inner world, but once they trust you, they'll share thoughts and feelings that are breathtakingly deep. They're idealistic dreamers who can also be brutally realistic about human nature. They're gentle and compassionate most of the time, but have this fierce, almost intimidating side when their core values are threatened. They crave meaningful connections with people, but also need massive amounts of alone time to function. They're creative free spirits who also love structure and organization in their environment. It's like they're multiple people rolled into one complex package. Here's what's really happening. INFJs are constantly balancing their rich internal landscape with the external world that doesn't always align with their inner experience. They've got these deep philosophical thoughts and intense emotions brewing while navigating practical reality. They're also masters of code switching. At work, they might be the professional, put-together colleague. With close friends, they're silly and completely unfiltered. Alone, they're contemplative and introspective. All of these versions are genuinely them, just different facets of a multidimensional personality. This complexity confuses people who prefer things simple and straightforward. But INFJs aren't trying to be mysterious or difficult. They're just naturally complex beings who contain multitudes. The sooner you accept that you won't put them in a neat box, the better your relationship will be. Strategic truth number 7, the purpose-driven force. Here's something you'll notice about INFJs. They're obsessed with meaning and purpose in a way that can seem intense to other people. They can't just coast through life doing meaningless work and killing time until the weekend. INFJs need to feel like their existence matters, like they're contributing something valuable to the world. This isn't just a nice-to-have preference. It's absolutely essential to their mental and emotional well-being. This is why you'll find so many INFJs in helping professions. Counseling, teaching, nursing, social work, nonprofit organizations. They're drawn to careers where they can see tangible evidence that their work makes a difference in people's lives. Money and status are secondary considerations. Sure, they need to pay bills like everyone else, but they'd rather make less money doing meaningful work than get rich doing something that feels empty or harmful. It's not just about career either. INFJs need their relationships to have depth and meaning. They need their hobbies to connect to something larger than entertainment. Even their daily activities need to align with their core values, or they start feeling restless and disconnected. When an INFJ feels lost or separated from their sense of purpose, they spiral hard. They'll fall into these dark periods where they question everything: their career choices, their relationships, their entire reason for existing. It's painful to watch, and even more painful for them to experience. If you have an INFJ in your life who seems lost, help them reconnect with what gives their life meaning. Remind them of the positive impact they've had on others. Help them brainstorm ways to align their daily life with their deeper values. Purpose is the fuel they need to thrive. Strategic truth number 8, the life transformer. Here's the most important truth about INFJs, and honestly, it's the one that matters most. If you let them, truly let them into your life, they will fundamentally change you as a person. They'll challenge you to think deeper, feel more authentically, and become the best version of yourself. They'll hold up a mirror that shows you parts of yourself you've been avoiding or denying. They'll ask questions that make you uncomfortable, because those questions force you to confront your own patterns and limitations. Being close to an INFJ isn't casual or surface level. It's transformative and intense. They see right through masks and defenses, but they'll love you anyway. They'll also refuse to let you hide behind those protective barriers forever. They're loyal beyond measure once you've earned their trust. They'll stand by you through your darkest moments without judgment. They'll celebrate your victories like they're their own achievements. They'll believe in your potential even when you've stopped believing in yourself.
They'll also push you toward growth, sometimes gently, sometimes not so gently. They won't let you settle for less than what they know you're capable of achieving. Through their example, they'll show you what authentic living actually looks like. Not everyone is ready for that level of relationship. Not everyone wants to be challenged and transformed. But if you're brave enough to let an INFJ into your inner world, your life will never be the same, and you'll be grateful for it. These 8 truths reveal INFJs as strategic, complex individuals, rather than just sensitive empaths. If you're an INFJ watching this, know that your complexity is a gift, not a flaw. If you have one in your life, treasure them and create space for their authenticity. If you want to continue the journey to understanding yourself or an INFJ in your life, click either of the following videos, where we continue to unlock the secrets of the INFJ personality type.